So my name's Michael Hardin, for those of you who don't know. If you haven't met me before, I have a great personality. And I'm usually full of dumb jokes that my wife doesn't laugh at anymore. So we're going to talk about things today with off-center drilling. Anybody understand what off-center drilling is or why I say it's really important? Anybody not understand? Okay, so, all right, well, that's a fair question. What it is most people will take a blank and you're going to set it up. You're going to put it in a set of jaws like this or in your drill press vise, and you're going to drill a hole through the middle of it. Have a good time. Well, that's great. It works fine. But when you're using something like a historic wood that has paint on the outside, this is a short blank from Cleveland Municipal Stadium where there's some Browns or Indians or somebody like that play there. But there's paint on the outside of it. So whenever you finish a pin from a stadium blank, you've turned it through the middle. Here's your blank. Here's the certificate. Yeah, it's a certificate. You can't really tell what it looks like. You can kind of get there, but if you turned it off center, save some of the paint on the outside of it in the process, and then you give it like, oh wow, I can see the paint still on there. And that works. Now this process works for more than just stadium blanks. I mean, I'm a little self-serving on that aspect because I really want you to buy more stadium blanks and show you how to do that. But it also works for things like whiskey barrels, wine barrels, or any other historic woods that may have painted surfaces on it. Not long ago I did this with a piece of trim work that came off a gentleman's grandmother's house. They had to replace the windows in the house and they took the trim off of it, and he saw it and he's like, you know, I saw Michael do this, and he's like, he was talking about with the stadium thing, I wonder if he can do this with the trim. He brought me the trim. It was 1-inch thick trim around the windows and had, I don't know, like 8 or 9 layers of paint on this thing. It was old. I think they were using paint in place of caulk for the windows for over the years. So we took it and turned it down and actually made pins out of it, saving some of those paint layers. It's a really cool looking aspect out of it. So you can use that process for it. Now, what I'm using here is a Sierra pin blank, or Sierra style pin kit that we're going to work with here. I'm using an 1/8-inch shim and a 1/4-inch shim. It's best if you use it as something kind of hardwood. You don't really want to use pine or anything like that. You want something that's hard, rock maple, and this is Baltic birch ply. So something that's got a little bit of stability and rigid effect to it because you're using it for support. Now, this flat twine cellophane stuff, you can get it at Home Depot, Lowe's, U-Haul, or any of those places that have moving stuff. This works really well for this process because what we're doing is gluing these pieces together, but we want to make it so that it comes off, like the little knife razor blade, hit it on the edge, and it comes clean. So I'm just kind of pinning the roll with my leg up against the table here and just holding it by hand. Oh, I tore it there, sorry. And we'll put 8, 9 layers, laps around this. And now that's holding it in place. That's plastic clamp is what it amounts to. What's that? Strip on the opposite side? Yes. Sorry, thank you. I think I may have missed that part. I apologize. The shims that I have on here. Hey, look, I did that right this time. With the shims that are on here, the fat side shim, over here. The fat side shim is the side of the paint that you want to save. So that, when you're using like a stadium blank from like Cleveland Municipal, Yankee Stadium, Fenway, any of those, where there's paint on 2 sides, it doesn't really matter which one you use, unless there's a curve. So if there's a curve to it from a curved seat, because the seats after about 1942-ish, any of the seats that were put in stadiums were all curved seats because we'd rather sit on a curved seat than a flat seat. So any of the older seats before that, they were all flat. But with the curved ones, you want to put the fat side on the curved side. And sometimes you may need to take the blank and just sand the corners off. So what I mean by that, if you have the blank that's this way, or this way in the curve, you want to sand off just the tips up here, just a little bit, not a lot. And then whenever you snap these together and glue those down, what's going to happen with that is, not glue, bind them down with the plastic wrap, it's going to hold it real close to that edge, and that's what you're looking for. If you're doing something like basketball court flooring, the bottom side of the flooring, yeah, nobody cares about that. The top side of the flooring is where the paint is. So that's where you're going to have the different colors or the finish that was on there. So that's what you want to pay attention to. So that's where you need to make sure you put your fat shim up against. Make sense? Have I lost anyone yet? Yes, sir.
You haven't lost me yet, but I have a question.
Shoot.
Is it always a quarter and an eighth, no matter depending on whichever blankets you use, Sierra, Junior, Cigar?
No.
Okay.
However, Junior Lower, Cigar, and Sierra are all about 1/2 millimeter apart.
Okay.
So this size works perfect for those. If it's something along the lines of a 3/8 inch tube, you may need to adjust your sims a little bit. That's why I always recommend you try this on something more than an expensive blank, because this blank we're using here is a $15 blank. Typically speaking, your wood blanks, you know, like maple, walnut, hickory, oak, any of those things, you're less than $1 a piece. Use one of those. And a really cool tip of how to test out how well you can do this, paint the blank first. Somebody's got, you know, some cheapo paint, rattle can paint, you know, left over from, you know, we had to repaint the bathroom or whatever. Any of that really works for what you're going to do here. Just wipe on a thin layer, let it dry, find another color, wipe on another layer. Put about 6 layers of paint on there in thin layers, let it dry, let it cure, come back to it, do this process, and that's how you can learn to do off-center turning and saving paint without using an expensive blank first. Everybody follow me? Okay. Once we get this done, we're going to put it in a set of pin jaws here. You can do this on a drill press, but what we're doing here gets a need for much closer accuracy. So I recommend that you use it inside a set of pin jaws on a lathe. There we go. Now all that extra that's on the tip here, I just cut that off of there, just so that my drill bit doesn't get any garbage in the way. What's the secret button to push to make it close?
I'll pick it up when we're done. Yeah, just throw it back to him.
Here.
I'll pick it up when we're done.
Well, I'm not done with it yet, but thank you. I'll get that to you in a second. Get that out of the way. Get that in there. 27/64 drill bit for a Liberty kit that we're working on here. And we're gonna bring this up here. Yep. Now I'm going to try and get, can you guys see that very well on the screen up there? Why do we have a line through the middle there?
Something's wrong with the camera.
Can you zoom in just a little bit?
Oh, come on, work with me here. Neanderthal hands. Anybody dizzy yet?
Counterclockwise. Now you should be able to just where you want.
I want to go this way.
Yeah.
Oh, that right there. Oh, there we go. Much better. All right. See if you guys can see this. Can you see the shim line right there? Yep. You see how close we are? It's a little scary, but it's okay. Where are my cool dude shades? Here we go. Safety third. It's far too fast.
Variable speed. Variable speed. Yeah, you turn it down on the bottom.
Turn the dial.
I don't know how low it's going to go.
Low.
Oh, it says 220 to 3. I thought it said 2200 to 3600. I was a little nervous there. So that was about 1,000 RPMs. That's about where I went. You guys see where that hole is there now? And see how close we are to that painted line? So without the shims, you can't really do this, not in a lathe. In a drill press, you can do it, but there's no support on that side thin wall. So you, I don't know about you guys, but I've never had a drill bit wander when I'm drilling in a drill press. Even a 2764, so I've never had one of those wander on me before. It drills straight every time. So.
It looked like it was also closer over to the...
Yep, it pushes it to a corner. So if you have one of those blanks, you get one of the edge corner blanks that you've got paint on 3 sides, you might be able to get a double side. Pro tip, I hoard those. It'll be okay. A friend of mine, he modified his tailstock and took this wheel off of it and actually put a lawnmower wheel on the back end of it. So he's got a big handle, so it makes it a little bit easier for him. Because I've never liked these little handle things like this. I'm sorry it's so loud. We're almost done, I promise. There it goes. Bob needs to work on this bed. Anybody ever use Bob's bed grease stuff? That stuff is amazing. If you haven't, I highly recommend you go talk to him. So. Hey, look at that. It's got a hole all the way through it. See how close we are to the edge there? Dangerously close. But it's okay. That's what we want. Cut this off here. Oh, come on. You can see that pretty well? So that's how close we are to the painted edge here. So this is the painted side we're saving. We have a little bit of fun with. Anybody get any of those Liberty kits from McKinsey? They're pretty slick. Anybody put them together yet? Have any issues out of them?
No.
Because they're American made. Yes, it's silly. Oh, that's right. The glue is all on the tip of this thing. I use the cheapest glue for putting tubes in when I'm in a hurry. Normally I use epoxy because it holds better, but this is probably a 5-year-old bottle of 2P10 gel. And it just doesn't seem to die. So I keep using it. The label started coming off of it, and I had electrical tape sitting next to me one day, so I just wrapped a bunch of laps around it. And that'll work, sure. Where'd Blank go?
Workshop bandage.
What's that?
Workshop bandage.
Yep.
It's a rag electrical tape.
Paper towels. Because I have 2 rolls of paper towels mounted, one on each side of my shop.
If you're bleeding bad, use duct tape.
If you cut the tip of your finger off on a table saw,
Go to the hospital.
did that. Found out my Mustang does about 130. But I still have my finger. Had a saw stop and shoved my hand into the side of it by accident.
I did it right after I whacked my tabletop.
I was cutting up plastic seat blanks. I'll give that a couple seconds here to dry out. I was cutting up plastic seat stadium blanks. So the last cut to get the last blank, holding here, pushing here. As soon as it finished the cut, the blank rolled in my hand. The saw blade isn't what got me. It's the saw blade going down is what. And it just got the just cut the tip of the skin on my finger, and I was too scared to look at it. But I took a paper towel, wrapped it up, and held my fist like this, and went to the hospital. I cut my finger off on the table saw. Which one? My middle finger. Come on back to the emergency room and get back there, and they're washing it off, cleaning it off, and everything. It's like, and then the little lady says, "You're such a big baby." It's like, what are you talking about? And I'm just sitting here, and I look over, and like, oh, it's still there. It didn't even get the fingernail. And this happened to be the same time that my beloved Washington Capitals were playing in the Stanley Cup Finals, and I think it was night of Game 3. Still made it to the bar to go drink and watch the game with my friends. So, meanwhile, my wife's calling me. She's like, "Are you okay? I'm at the bar. You just cut your finger on the table saw and you're at the bar. It'll be okay, honey." So, all right, that's all dried out there, good enough.
Painkiller.
Yes, sir. Like I said, normally I use two-part epoxy for these kind of things, but in the art of we need to move things along, I don't have time to wait for epoxy, so I'm using super glue for this. A lot of people cringe when I do this, but I've done it enough times. I've only cut my hand once or twice. Keep these fingers out of the way on the bottom side. Keep the wick of your thumb up here out of the way. Sometimes I have gloves, but it's just this one, and I don't go really fast with it. Just go gentle. This is a white side carbide cutter head, not a sponsor.
Just clean the tube out?
Squaring the blank to the tube.
Oh, that's it. Okay, gotcha.
So I just square in the tip of it. I trim the blank just about 1/8 inch long, or longer than the tube.
I do mine on the sander. I thought just clean the blank. I forgot about those barrel trimmers.
Yeah, I use them all the time. I have, I used to, when I first bought, I had one of these carbide cutters, and then I had all the same, and I got just like, this is a pain in the butt changing these things all the time. I need to save up and just buy enough of these stupid cutter heads. So then, honey, this is my birthday present. Bought a whole bunch of cutter heads. So, all right, that's all squared up and everything there now, so we're gonna take that off of there, take that off of there, pull this out of here. There we go. It's amazing. I'm putting tools away as I'm working. I almost never do that. That there, that there. This ridiculously sharp. So understand, this doesn't work so good?
No.
Should get Brian. Hey, should get Brian back in here. He's like, hey, is this how this works? So, oh, it's always fun picking on him. You get the casting kid, then you get the elf on the shelf, and I'm just the big dumb redneck. So, all right. Anybody turned Liberty kits a year ago? You know what the difference between the old Liberty kits and the new Liberty kits?
It's the
Made American?
it's the size of the top because of the new clip.
Yep. So I don't know if that's even going to show up or not, but I don't know if this one has one stripe, this one has two stripes. Your two stripe is the top bushing because it's a thicker bushing on there. So we're going to put those on, and let's see. Oh, get your fingers out of the way, goofball. You see how much is left on there from the bushing? We're about 1/16 of an inch on that side, and a little bit less on that side. So what's going to happen is we're going to turn this down. We're going to have a fatter piece on this side than we will on this side because that's where the bushings are. So we'll bring this together here. Who tool rests like this? Who uses the round bar tool rests? Where'd you get it from?
My son made it, actually.
Oh, wait, that's just fancy. We may need to talk later. I got mine from Rick Harrell. He made it for me whenever I got my new lathe. Because the new post on my lathe is a 1-inch post, so I had to have all new ones made, unfortunately. I think it's a bit high. Yeah, that's a bit high. I also have stop collars on my tool rest, so I can just drop it in and go. Yeah, it looks good there. All right, so we're just gonna turn this like we normally would. I'm gonna crank this up to my normal turning speed of 3K-ish. There we go. All right, you guys in the front seats might get some chips flying on you.
Okay, we'll see.
Oh, I forgot to say one thing. Turning this, the fat side of the blank, where there's going to be, where you're basically losing all the paint off of there, if you're really good with your bandsaw, and your bandsaw does not have one of those where you have to put your blank in and turn it 45 degrees to get a straight line cut across it. I've never owned a bandsaw like that. But if you can get a consistent straight line off of it, a lot of guys I know will take the blank and cut the fat side of the blank left on there. They'll cut that little paint line sliver off of the blank, and they'll give that to whoever they give them the pin. So, hey, this is a piece of it that I saved. So it's more paint, you can see. So it's all about making that connection of here's the wood, there's the paint, so they can see where it came from. Because the certificates you're going to get is going to have the picture of the original seat on there, and it's got, they'll see the painted seat on there. So it kind of helps put things together. So, sorry, I almost forgot to mention that. All right, that's round all the way over except for my painted side. You guys see that? Sorry, that's not a great angle on the screen up there, but can you see that out here? All right. I probably should have picked a different color stadium seat that's a much darker paint so you guys in the cheap seats back there can see.
There's green under it, probably.
There's something dark under it. I'm colorblind, I can't tell. At least that's what the Navy says to me. And when my wife questions, why did you pick that out to wear? It was clean? Is not a valid answer.
Top of the pile.
I usually come home and it's like, I knew you were going to wear that shirt today. How'd you know? It was on the top of the pile. It was clean. So right now, all I'm doing is getting really close to my bushings on here. On each end, and then I'll kind of work it in the middle. You still hear that thumping as it's going. You still feel the thumping. You still see a lot of paint on there. So now I'm pretty much ready to start sanding this. So there is a specific art to how you sand these because, there's my sandpaper. Anybody see me do my demo on Magic Juice yesterday? Still using my Norton sand wet paper. It's cheap stuff, I use it, it works. All right, so whenever you're holding your sandpaper on here, how many people hold your sandpaper something like this, similar to this kind of method? Don't do it anymore. And the reason why I'm gonna tell you that, you're getting my biased opinion. That's why you're here. You're getting my biased opinion and my professional opinion on this. If you're holding it like this as it's coming around, you're thumping it on this leading side right here. So you're gonna wear off that lead edge before anything else, and that's where you're going to eat into your painted surface. This, we'll go with the word physics. Property that you're experiencing here, you're not able to hold a flat surface against that as it's rotating around because it's thumping against that spot. And what you want to do is have a centrifugal pull, if you makes sense, in the sense that I hold my sandpaper like this on these kind of blanks, because then it holds it rounder and supports the sandpaper more balanced around the blank, so then it doesn't touch the painted surface. Am I making sense what I'm trying to explain? So,
Doesn't it load up?
no. Well, it can, but I'm moving it around. It dumps out. Okay. You'll see here in a second. Now, the other thing of why I'm doing this on here like that, it holds an even pressure going across. This is paper. It's not Arbonette or any of the other cloth-backed type stuff. Excuse me. So if you pull too hard on this, you're going to snap it, you're going to break it. So you have to be a little more delicate with your sandpaper if you're using this kind. So that's what I have to work with. So take this off here. Now we're starting to come off there real good. Now the other thing to keep in mind with this kind of sanding property, or principle, anyone ever turn white oak, red oak, elm, hickory, ash, any of those kind of really bold open grain woods? You ever notice that when you're sanding like this way, you'll get a thump out of it? It's because it's a hardwood, but there tends to be a little bit of softer wood between it, and when it hits that groove, you're going to start wearing down on that one little groove in the open grain, and it's the same principle that happens here. So you can use this same sanding method on those open grain woods like that to get better results as well. So now I'm going to hold it normally. How I normally hold sandpaper is the 2-finger hold, and I hold it out. This is always my armrest because I told you I'm lazy. And it just helps stability for holding my hands. I'm only doing this on the end edge next to the bushing to make sure that I get a clean connection to my bushing there. This is my 320, same thing again. And 400. And then my 600, and then I stop. It's a little more difficult to do this whenever I have my home lathe because I usually have dust collection going like crazy pulling right here. And that's it. Now you're ready for a finish of choice. put on there. I usually do craft coat finish because that's what I like. That's what I do. I'll pass a blank around. You guys take a look at it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll make them up as we go.
A CA finish on there?
You have to be a little careful with doing a CA finish because
How do you get up?
that's what I'm getting at. So you almost have to stop the lathe, wipe down on that, or you need to make your flat spot as straight as possible on there. Otherwise, your CA is going to get a little funky looking through that spot. So, but I like craft coat better than CA because I have a tendency to glue my hands to things or glue things to me, and I try to avoid that. Plus, the fumes kind of suck. So I tend to use craft coat. I mean, I'm not your typical pin turner on that, I guess, because I do a lot of production run stuff. Like I have a pin show coming up in 2 weeks, and next week I'll probably make about 150 pins next week for my show because I'm a little behind. So I have to get that done, and whenever I do that, I'll make probably 30, 40 wood tubes at once. And I have one of those, you've seen the little displays, like Scott Vaughn has it for all of his card blanks. It's got the little wooden spindle stick. It looks, the strip and then the wooden dowel sticking up. I have one of those little racks at home that whenever I use craft coat, I'll wipe it on like a wipe-on poly, and I'll put the first one down, and then I'll go through all the blanks, and 20 or 30 of them or whatever. By the time I get to the last one, the first one's dry, so I can go back and put the next coat on. And I end up putting anywhere from 8 to 15-ish coats on the blanks, depending on what the material is. More closed grain, less coats, more open grain, more coats. Run through all of those. Once I get that done, then let it cure for 24 or 48 hours.
Just wipe that on with a rag?
Yes, sir. Like using craft coat, it wipes up with warm soapy water, but if I'm gonna do a whole bunch of those, I'll throw on a pair of nitrile gloves and use an old wash rag from Walmart, the 98-cent specials, and I usually buy them in bulk because I use them as wipe-on rags. And whenever I get done with one side of it, then I usually, half the time I'll cut them in quarters and use them like that, and they work fine for me. But, yes, ma'am?
How many coats of craft coat do you put on?
Of craft coat, depending on the wood, anywhere from 8 to about 15. So, and it's about 30 to 60 seconds between coats. It's not a fast finish to put on, but whenever I'm doing a whole bunch of them, it's actually not so slow because the wait time is negated because I'm moving from one blank to the next. So.
Where you get craft coat?
Me?
Oh, you got it?
I own craft coat.
Okay. I know. I got your magic juice. I love it.
Yeah, shameless plug, I know. Craft coat was a product that was developed originally as a call coat. If any of you duck call makers are in the room and have heard of that before, that's what it was originally marketed as. My cousin is the one behind developing it. It was a product that was slightly modified from its original intended purpose, which was sealing basketball floors. And we added a couple of things to it to make it a little bit more friendly to the turning world, and have started using it there. Because, and with everything we've done with that now, moved away from calling it just call coat and more craft coat because there's so many more people that use it for so many more things. I'm using it for bowls and peppercorn grinders and things like that. But I've been using craft coat going on close to 10 years now. So it works for me. It doesn't work for everyone.
How is it that you like that better than a wipe-on poly?
Because wipe-on poly is a lot stickier. You're getting, like I said, my biased opinion. For me, I like it because it cleans up a lot easier. I have less things stuck to my bench because of it. And so it's just, that's just how it works for me. So.
You use it on bowls, you said?
Yep.
Regular, like salad bowl? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is it food safe then?
From everything I have been told, it has been food safe, but I don't use it on any of that thing that uses food other than peppercorn grinders things. But I'm not going to say you can't, and I'm not going to say that you can, but that's what I do.
We're not saying anything. He certainly used a lot of words.
Yes, sir.
Could you use a friction polish on that blank? And how would you apply it?
You can use a friction polish on it. I'm not a huge fan of friction polishes because friction polish is dead inside of 30 days as far as I'm concerned.
Doesn't stay on.
Well, from the nature of what it is, I mean, it's generally a wax of sorts, and the oils and moisture in your hand will break down the finish over time. I'll get it. So just the moisture, oils, lotions, anything in your hands, they're going to break down that finish over time. And here lately, with the whole, everybody's using hand sanitizer like crazy for the last 18 months or so, that's also been very detrimental to pen finishes because that high alcohol content even breaks down CA finishes. So, unfortunately. Any other questions? All righty then.
Thank you.
Thank you for hanging in.